Hi everybody, welcome to Art Day. I have been working ahead a tiny little bit for today's project. So this is a very lovely couple that I know and who's gonna get married in early August. And for a wedding gift, I wanted to have a portrait watercolor painting for them. So what I did was all the drawing of the two of them and inking the outlines already, because it just takes forever. And honestly, I wanted to, well, work with a painting today and not with drawing on Art Day. So I decided, well, I'm gonna work ahead a bit and now I can color. I do have the Schminke watercolors with me. I do have a set here. Let me show you that lovely set. And this is what I'm going to use for most of the painting. I do have some Gansai Tambi pearl colors here, and what are they called? Coliro pearl colors from Finetech. I do have a dark blue and a silver because Swea, that's the lady, wears jewelry and I need a little bit of a shimmer on that part, but I will have the main coloring done just with the normal watercolors. And I will start off with the skin. It's been forever since I used watercolors this way, and I mean I have used watercolors quite recently, but I mean like with watercolor pans and brush and such, and not have, well, watercolor pencils or neo colors or something like that going on. So it's been a while, but I was really looking forward to this. So I am just starting with the skin here. That marker that I use to ink the painting is waterproof, and that lets me just go over the marker and that's not gonna smudge or smear or anything. So I'm just starting off with a layer of watercolor. Now I can re-ink those lines later on if I so desire, because, well, I'm going to lose a bit of that bright black here. It's gonna get a little foggy and smudgy with the watercolor on top, but I can add some watercolor later. Some watercolor. Yeah, no. I meant I can use some marker later on. And I want to have a little fade out happening, not too much though. So I'm getting a little more watery towards the lower part of the painting. I spent all morning, so it's a kids' weekend where I'm filming this, so I spent all morning drawing this, and they were quite curious to look what I did there. And now that they're traveling back to their mom, I can do the video part of it, because you, well, would have them in the background a lot, so I didn't film while they were at the house. Okay, let's move on to her arm. Blending in way more water, or I'm using way more water here on the lower part. Again, I want it to fade out a little. And I'm using Naples yellow for the skin tone here. I think that's perfect color for the underpainting. And as per usual, I will have all of the supplies that I used. I will have that on my blog. So an hour after this video is published, the blog post goes live and you can read up on what exact materials and such I used. And if you like the colors a lot that I'm using and you want to use them on your own project, maybe a portrait as well of somebody that you know, you can just go ahead and get these colors together, then rewatch the video for when I talk about how I shade things to make a face not look too flat. Alright, that was the skin, first layer of it anyways. Now I'm moving on. I want to start shading the face, and I'm going to take yellow ochre. It's a wonderful tone to use for Caucasian skin, I think. Now I want to start with her again, because she had a little time to dry. Now let me quickly check the photo that I got as a reference for where the light is coming from. The light is coming from the right hand side and the left hand side, so the middle is a little more shaded, so I'm going to start pulling that in. It looks really horrible at this stage, I know, but that is going to change in a minute. Precisely now, when I just take a water brush with a little bit of water in it and pull out that pigment. That's something that I really like to do when it comes to shading with watercolors. Just go with a little bit of light ochre or a yellow ochre, and so the cleavage is a little darker, and then just with a little water in the brush, no pigment there at all, just feather it out, pull it to where it needs to go. And since you can reactivate watercolors, so once they are dry, if I go on top with water, I can move the pigment again, which means that you don't have to hurry too much when you're painting to get that pigment moved around. However, there's a few shades where this is a little more difficult, red being one of them and purple being the other. So any purple or red shades or tones, it's a little more difficult to pull the pigment once it is dried. And that is because it seeps into the paper way more. Moving on to her arm. Need a little more of the yellow ochre. And pulling the pigment, pull, pull, pull. There we go. I'm going to let her dry and move on to his face. He has the light coming from the left-hand side, so I'm going to shade a little more on the right-hand side. And same as with her, I just pull the pigment with a wet brush just to feather it out a bit. And now I'm just reactivating the Naples yellow underneath and let it mingle for a bit. His arm is partially in shadow as well. Now I need a tiny little bit of a red pinkish tone, a little bit of a magenta maybe, or violet. I think I like magenta. So that would be flesh tone plus 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, those darker colors, by the way, are not as great when it comes to visibility. So I'm really gonna water this down a lot. Then I'm gonna go over her skin again. So those pots here that I have the watercolor in, those dark colors are sometimes not as distinguishable. So I have to count the pans after a color that I used to know that I have the correct one. Just adding a little bit of a magenta to have a bit more interest on her skin and not make her look too yellowish. Just a little interest there. And I really water it down a lot, so I don't want her to look too pink. I just want to avoid any flat look. This piece here, it should have a certain amount of, well, colors and interest and cool stuff. So I'm playing a little more with what shades of color I bring in. For example, I will probably add a little bit of a purple to her as well. But now that she's got enough of the pink pigment, I will just feather it out a bit. And then go in with purple. Being very restrictive with where I put it, and only have a really watered down kind of pigment here, so I want a little there. just a little more here underneath the collar, because there's a little shadow. Maybe a little more purple. And just a tiny touch here on her arm. Now again, I go in with a clean brush, not too much water added, just a tiny little bit to close those gaps here, just smooth out the edges. And then I can move on to his skin, and I'm doing pretty much the same thing, but I'm going a little more into the purple. I just mixed what I had on my palette when it comes to the pink and the purple, but I will now only add purple pigment. Watercolor pretty much is just layering and layering and layering all of those colors that you want. And well, deal with where they're going. Watercolors can be a little bit unpredictable because the pigment goes where there's a wet surface, and sometimes you don't have your excuse me, you don't have your surface dry enough for something not to move. You just gotta deal a bit with that, but I think it's quite doable. Just gotta practice maybe a little. I'm gonna dry this off now, just to speed up the process, because I want to have a dry surface for when I go around with the glasses and such. I don't want this to be too wet, but I just saw I forgot Svea's lips. They have to be painted. I'm just taking the same purple and pink that I used on her skin. And see, it's bleeding. Don't want that. So I'm just gonna dab away the pigment, dry it off, and then come back to the pink and the purple. See, I had said earlier I can reactivate those colors, so I'm just going over the dry paper now. Clean up her skin a bit. Need a bit of the yellow mixture here. with just a tiny little bit of the pink mixture. And then I can move forward to her lips. Just give that a solid layer of the pink and the purple. Then I can move on to him for a minute. So I want a little bit of a smoother color transition here. You see, I'm just using a brush with a little bit of water. It's really fairly easy. Just clean up those edges here a bit. Not too much, because I want him to have a little texture on his skin too, just like she has. But it should be only texture and not distracting, you know? There's a slight difference there, at least in my book. So for her, gonna smooth out a bit too. And then I'm adding a little bit of that pink purple to her right hand side. And just a smidge around the nose on her left hand side. Pretty much a little bit of a natural shadow here underneath the glasses. Not too much though. There we go. So now I have to dry off this painting again, because I don't want any bleeding for the next part. Again, cleaning up the edges here. Okay, and now I can move on to his lips and just add a little bit of pigment there. And now I can start with the next part, which I think is his hair. He's got quite the dark hair, so I'm going for Payne's Gray and Black. So I'm starting off with Payne's Gray. And I did not want to go over the skin. I'm dabbing that away. And then I'm going in with a bit of black. And I chose Payne's Gray beforehand, like as a almost like an underpainting, because I do want to have a few highlights there. So I cannot go too dark right from the get-go. And again, thank you, Sarah. Don't make it any more difficult for yourself. So there's a few highlights on the left-hand side of the painting for him. Going back to the Payne's Gray and filling that up here. And I'm using a mixture of the black and the Payne's Gray for his eyebrows. Oh, I forgot to paint his ear. That's not good. So I'm going in with just a little bit of the yellow ochre. And it did bleed into the black, but that's fine for me for now. Now he wears a olive green shirt in the photo, so I'm going to give him an olive green shirt here as well. I'm currently just adding a base coat of color. There will be a different green and probably a little brown, a little blue in his shirt for excuse me, for shading, but I want it to be olive green, like with a base coat. The second sleeve is right here. And since there's a little light coming from this direction, I'm just going to pull the pigment a bit with just water. Now, one of my favorite shading colors, if you watched my Beyond the Lines videos, you are well aware it is indigo. I like indigo as a shading color. So I'm using that on the shirt here to add a little bit of a darker hue. And same here on his other sleeve. I'm adding a little bit of the olive green to the indigo. Mixing the two together. Going over the top again. And over a few of these folds here as well. Now I'm taking just a clean brush with water and I'm re-wetting the surface of the olive green part of the shirt so that the indigo pigment can flow a bit. Just to clean up his collar. And then I gotta let this dry. Meanwhile, I can work on her hair because it doesn't touch the shirt a lot. Yeah, I think it's better than her shirt because it touches a lot of green. So I'm going with her hair. She has dark brown hair, so I'm taking a little burnt umber and sepia to paint her hair. So for the light tone will be burnt umber. And then I'm adding sepia, which is a more of a cooler brown. For one, I mix it together with the remaining burnt amber that I have on my palette, which you can see because it is off screen. I'm gonna clean up the edge here because she has very, very straight hair and a very straight line on her forehead. That's a little better. And while that dries, I go back to his hair, adding only black for now. And back to her hair, because now his hair can dry. Adding a little bit of the black to my sepia tone. To add here underneath the glasses where they cast a shadow. Just a tiny little bit here on her bun. Now I gotta clean up the edge, because I did go too far here, so I'm just going in with water. And then dab this away very softly, very carefully. And then with my brush, which is still a bit wet, just gonna clean it up. A little bit of the yellow ochre. Over this here. And again with a wet brush, I just pull the pigment a bit more. Now I have to, for one, get a new paper towel. And second, I do have to go at it with my blow dryer for me to be able to work on the next part of the painting. Now, they both have brown eyes. I'm actually pretty happy with how his shirt turned out on this part, but not on that part, so I'm going in once more, adding a little bit of the indigo indigo and olive green mixture. So, but now they've got brown eyes. I need a smaller brush. And I'm just taking the burnt umber sepia mixture that I used for Svea's hair. I'm gonna use that on the eyes. There's not too much detail that I can add to the eyes because it's a rather tiny section of the painting. Let's see, her glasses, her shades that are on top are that same brown, a little more, I'd say a little more to the burnt umber. So I'm adding a little more burnt umber to my mixture here. And then I can color in her shades. And just to shade things a bit, I'm adding more sepia. And add that here. I will also add a tiny little bit of indigo because I like to shade dark brown with indigo. Quelle surprise! It's really not a surprise, but it's one of my go-to color combos to just not make this look too flat. I could add black, but I think black always flattens the painting, or it flattens the color, I should say, not the painting. There we go. Now I have to check what her other glasses are. I think they have a silver frame. I don't remember. Silver on the side. Front is more of a very dark purpley red, and his frames are more of a gray. So let's start with his glasses. I'm using Payne's Gray for him. And glasses are sometimes difficult to do with watercolor because you don't want them to look splotchy or wild, as watercolor sometimes does. Look at her skin, look at his skin. But you want this to be rather restrained when it comes to the glasses. So I'm taking a very small brush and just being quite careful there. Also add a bit of gray here to the nose clips or whatever they are called from the glasses. And then I can move on to her eyebrows for one, because I just saw I haven't painted them yet. So I'm taking my sepia burnt umber shade mixture. And her frames were a dark red purple-ish tone, so I'm going more towards the purple here. That's the artist's freedom, that or the artist's way of interpreting, because I don't want too much of the red since I used that in her skin already. So I'm just taking the purple and indigo. Maybe a little more purple. There we go. And use that for the front part of her glasses, of the frame. And the sides she has silver, and that is why I brought in the shimmery watercolors, because I want to see if I can manage and paint the silver glasses and such. And jewelry and stuff. If I can't, I might have to introduce a bit of gel pen. I'm going to do that anyways because the reflection in the eyes, I will use a white gel pen for that. I could use gouache, but for those tiny, tiny dots, I find gel pen works a little bit better. just saw I didn't color this part of the glasses. So let's just go ahead and do so. I think I will paint her shirt first before I go to color the glasses, like the jewelry and such. So the necklace, the earring, and this part of her glasses. I'm really bad with words today. So what I want to use is, as a main color, she has a blue shirt. What I want to use is Prussian blue. It's a warm blue, and I can very easily shade that with indigo. So I'm taking the Prussian blue. And I really love this color. Besides indigo, it is one of my favorite, or it is my favorite blue color. Indigo being my absolute favorite, and Prussian blue being my second favorite color, blue color. I do like the warm tones, I have to say. Now I have to be a little careful because she has a strap of her handbag, purse kind of thing on her shoulder, and that is not blue. Oops. Sorry for the noise. Was a little clumsy with my water pot. Now I can go in with a combination of Prussian blue and indigo to shade that lovely shirt. I'm starting back here on her collar. Onto the folds on her shirt. But not the skin, Miss King. That's not good. That's better. Did I load it up? Yeah, I did load it up. So onto all of these folds here on her arm. And then of course towards her neck there is a little more of a darker blue. What I usually do will also happen here. I clean up and pull out the pigment a bit with just a water loaded brush. Now we'll go in with only indigo. Remember before I had a mixture of both indigo and Prussian blue, but now I will only go in with indigo and add a little more oomph to now I have to let this dry. What I can do in in between while I let this dry, I'm just mixing my browns together and the gray and the black that I used beforehand, and I'm just going to paint in that handle that is in the background. Which will also be kind of a line in regards to how far do I color the background, how far up. So I want quite a bit of white in this painting or unpainted surface. This is pretty much the same style that I used with my flowers. I showed you the painting in last week's, in the previous art day. So I'm just taking the purple indigo mixture here and use that as the background color. It's pretty much the same style, so not all of this paper will be filled with color. But I'm going to have quite a bit of a section unpainted. And I think that handle here is the perfect separation between the part that is going to have pigment on it and the part that doesn't. And I'm feathering out towards the right hand side of the painting. I'm gonna add a little here. Just going back to my burnt umber sepia mixture here. Just cleaning up my palette. Now I will dry this off and then I can go back to the next part of the coloring. Her shirt here, the jewelry, the strap of her purse, the glasses, the lips, both his and hers, and the earring. Okay. On to the strap of her handbag. It's black, and I'm taking Payne's Gray and black to color this in, because I don't want it to look flat, like I had said before. I do like using more shades of something, especially when it appears to be black. So having a little bit of the Payne's Gray for the lighter parts, and then go in with black on top for the darker sections. I'm also going to take a little more indigo for her shirt, especially here around the strap, because it casts a bit of a shadow, as do the folds here. And on the other side of the strap, the shirt is darker too. I'm also going to darken up that inner part of her collar. I'm adding a little bit of the black to the indigo, just a bit. That was too much. I should have maybe taken the smaller brush. Oh, but that's fine. And I'm also... That was my vlogging camera. No more battery. Adding a bit here, just to even things out. Now I'm just taking the brush loaded with water, cleaning things up. And I need a tiny bit of the Prussian blue for the upper part of her collar. Gotta be careful though, not to have this too wet, otherwise it will bleed too much. There we go. Adding a little more black to the strap. I'm adding a little bit of black here to some of the creases of her shirt. Same here on the other side. Just to add a little bit of detail. Now I'm taking a little more of the indigo and add that to his shirt. Adding quite a bit of water though. And then again, just a brush water loaded with water to pull the pigment a bit, not have it look too blotchy. I think his hair needs a little more of the black, and I'm mixing that in with the remaining indigo that I got on my palette. It helps with the hair not looking like a helmet, you know? Okay. Gotta carefully add a little more to his eyebrows. I'm going to add the same thing here on her glasses, without having it too much on the skin. Sarah, you should have taken the small brush again. So I just dabbed away the pigment, and now I'm going in with a smaller brush. So now I'm using the big brush too, and I will add a few more details with my smaller brush. For one, I'm taking a little sepia and dark brown, burnt umber. Add a little more here underneath her glasses. And also on the lower part here of her hair bun. Then I can move forward, clean up her white shirt, because there's a little skin tone on top. There we go. And now I can go in for her lips and his lips. to add a little bit of a darker shade there. So for her, I'm using purple and indigo. Adding a line only and then going in with a water brush and feathering in that pigment a bit. Gotta add a little bit of that magenta. And for him I'm taking purple and indigo as well. And I will let this dry and then go over it with my flesh tone again. But what I can do now, while I'm waiting for the lips to dry, I can work on the jewelry part, and I'm taking a little bit of my pearly watercolor here. See how this one works. If it's not too great, I can still go on top with my Gansai Tumby watercolors. That looks kind of nice and sparkly. And I'm using the same for her necklace. And then we can move on to the pearly dark blue for her earring and for the pendant or whatever it is on her necklace. There we go. I'm gonna blast it with my... So now we'll take the smaller brush and the Naples yellow color that I used in the very beginning for my skin tones. I'm just going over a bit. Too thick. More water. I think I need a little bit of the yellow ochre for her, just to de-pink it a bit. Because she's not wearing any lipstick in the photo. Got enough water. You can blot it off. Oh, that's more like it. Now I'm adding a little more of the Naples yellow. And just a touch of the magenta pink. Drying it off again, and then I go in with my black marker to clean up some of the lines that have been smudged a bit with the light colors, and then I go in with my where's my marker? There it is. So for example here, I lost quite a bit of the black. Find that especially around the eyes, adding that black marker once more makes a difference. Lets the eyes pop. Lost quite a bit of detail here on her hair. Way more than I lost on his hair, so I'm just adding a little more back in. But I'm not gonna add any lines to his hair, because I think that is way more visible. Going to add a little, like half ovals or circles here back on her necklace. Still want the silver to be visible, but I also want to make sure that it's not viewed as a splotch but as a chain. I'm actually fine for the rest of her. Maybe a little more on the ear. And now for him. Same thing, those yellow watercolor shades did take away quite a bit of the oomph of the black lines. in his face. So I'm just gonna go over them again. I lost a bit on his shirt color too. And here on his sleeve. I think all the other lines are fine with the lips maybe. Lost a bit of the blackness there too. And now I can go in with my gel pen. Add a little bit of a dot for the reflection. And she has some reflection here on her earring, and some on here as well. And also here. There we go. Now I only have to sign it and then I'm done. So where will I sign? I will sign here. And that is my watercolor portrait painting. Now I only have to buy a frame to put this in, and then I am ready for a wedding in August. So I hope you enjoyed this painting video. I know I didn't talk as much as I usually do when describing things, but it's really hard thinking and doing at the same time. But I will do better hopefully in the next video. I hope you had fun and enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I will get back to you as quickly as I can. And I will see you in 2 weeks with probably another watercolor painting. I've got another celebration coming up in August, and I need to have a watercolor painting done for that occasion. So I think that will happen next time, but it's going to be a totally different style. So join in, come back to the channel, and thank you very much for watching. Bye.